One of the biggest limiting beliefs is that advertising and paid traffic needs to be direct response. Within the first 5 seconds of landing on a page, you should be able to know, what do you do? Why do I need it? How do I get it?
If there is one piece of advice that you could share with someone who is running their own general contracting business or just business owners in general.
Bias towards action. Bias towards action, take action, just get it out there. Try to be immune to embarrassment. Don't be afraid of the camera. Jump on and do some content. No one's really paying attention to you anyway.
Welcome to another episode of Unconventional Materials. Joining me today is a guest that I'm super excited to bring on. He is the co-founder of First Spark Digital, a former Facebook employee who is actually a product specialist at the company, who then forged his own path with a full funnel performance marketing agency that is known as First Spark Digital. We're super excited to have him on and to talk about all of his insights as it relates to the performance marketing world for General Contractors. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce him, Mr. Mitch Correia. How you doing, Mitch?
Good, Lev. How you doing? Thanks for having me, man.
I'm super excited to have you on, man. I know that I gave kind of a little bit of an introduction, but I didn't include that you are also a fellow San Diego State Aztec alumni, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that either about you.
Everybody's got a mutual connection somewhere. Mitch, why don't you just kind of start off by telling us a little bit about how you started this digital marketing agency in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I was working at Facebook and up until around 2017. And when I moved back from San Francisco down to San Diego, I didn't want to get a real job. There was the market down here wasn't as good as tech up in the Bay Area, of course. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to start using some of the skills I picked up on Facebook ads, internal dog fooding ads. And I was in the dog fooding program. Dog fooding is when you're trying your own product, essentially. And so that's where I got my start in Facebook ads at Facebook in that group. So when I came here, I started running ads for my brother had a startup at the time. I started running ads for friends and family, and then pretty quickly grew to, just a personal 6-figure plus freelancing business in probably like 4 or 5 months, really cutting my chops. And then from there, I met a partner in San Diego, actually, when I was putting out a job application to hire in San Diego. And this was on Upwork. And then that's how I met my partner, Adam. And we started working together, formed First Spark. This was about 2019. And ever since then, we've been working together and growing the company. And it's been great. It's been a fun ride.
I can only imagine. I guess, finding a partner on Upwork, that's not something that you commonly hear about. What was kind of the thinking going into that? Like, why did you find yourself in need of a partner when you already started a company?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it was really, I was looking for someone to help me on the Google ad side and the paid search. Paid social and paid search I could do both, but they are different skill sets. They're different mindsets. They're oftentimes different personality types. And I needed help with a brand that I was helping growing. And at the time they were doing a few 100,000 and, e-commerce brand. And we scaled them to doing 5 million in about like a year and a half, almost 2 years. And I was like, I need someone that can really just own. I needed help, right? I mean, I was hiring contractors, usually in the design and video space, but I needed someone to help. And then he was in San Diego. We met up and we were just working together. And I'm like, hey, you just want to like come on and just form an agency together. And we kind of hit it off and we're good friends. And then ever since then, yeah, we've just been working together and growing the team.
Heck yeah. And it sounds like, you started the company back in 2017. Is that right?
We joined together in around 2019, Adam and I. Yeah.
Okay, right on. So you started the company and you kind of had this vision for who it is exactly that you were going to serve. But from the First Spark Digital website, from what I have at least experienced, it sounds like you guys have quite the experience when it comes to B2B marketing efforts. Is that right?
Yeah, we do a lot of B2B. We aren't super niched on industry. We do serve we have, like I mentioned, we do still serve e-commerce and we still do B2B largely in the SaaS space, right? But we do have some consumer SaaS. So that's really the three verticals that we're serving in general, is the e-commerce and then SaaS on the B2B and B2C. But yeah, on B2B side is where we definitely have the majority of our just overall marketing and overall clients. And so B2B is really kind of where we specialize and where we thrive overall.
Heck yeah. We have a lot of contractors that are listening / will be listening to this in the future. And I kind of want to tailor the conversation towards the mindset necessary in order to be successful in any sort of full funnel performance marketing engagement, say with another agency or with your agency. What do you think are some of the most common limiting beliefs as it relates to paid traffic or paid ads?
Yeah, I would say, one of the biggest limiting beliefs is that advertising and paid traffic needs to be direct response, all of it, right? And so everything becomes there's a lot of pressure and focus on return on ad spend, ROAS, right? Which is a lot of problems with that metric for a lot of different reasons, even in D2C businesses, right? Where you're just looking at ads manager and you're looking at ROAS up, good, right? ROAS down, bad. Not the case, right? That's a whole nother conversation on its own. So I think that's a big limiting belief, is just like, hey, everything needs to back out dollar wise within the ads manager, right? It needs to show profitability. When in fact, especially for B2B, but this applies to all to D2C and B2C as well, and contracting business as well, is that the stuff that you can't measure as much, mind share, brand, memorability, right? All of these things are super important, and they do get overlooked. I mean, it's just like it's the biggest common pitfall and the biggest kind of limiting belief that really can really kill ad performance over the long term. So it's good to really think about, yes, you want to do direct lead generation's fine. Direct response is fine. It's super powerful, and you can build really powerful funnels with really powerful offers and get them to convert rather quickly, right? But when you neglect brand, people don't usually look at paid as like, oh, this is a place to kind of build brand, and not focus on ROAS and ROI metrics, but look at like, what's the engagement like, right? Like, are people watching this video? Are people interacting? Are they coming from the site? Are they coming from a paid ad and spending a lot of time on our site and browsing around? And so that's a lot of times the barrier that we have to kind of like break with a lot of like clients, is like, hey, we can't just focus on this metric. We need to look at the whole picture in the long term if you want to succeed. So I'd say that's like the number one for sure.
Yeah, and it sounds like a part of the job on your end, or maybe even Adam's end as well, is enrolling or educating your clients on the philosophy that they need to adopt in order to be successful with paid traffic or paid social. Is that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the client relationship management and education side is half of it, I would say, right? Is half of the whole process, because you have to be aligned on mindset and outcomes, right? Like, what are we expecting to do from this? If there's misalignment, and you've experienced this too, I'm sure, when you have misalignment on like, what's our objectives and outcomes, and like, what are we actually trying to accomplish, then like it's going to go really south really quick, right? So educating, aligning on the goals, and that's part of what even channels like LinkedIn are for. When I'm posting quote unquote thought leadership or just my opinions, part of that is like educating current clients. And I've had current clients like, oh, I saw your post today, like, are we doing this, are we trying this? And I'm like, that's a big part of it. It's not just for lead generation, it's just to educate even current clients or people I work with of like, hey, this is how we're thinking about things. And it really helps. And so, yeah, education's huge.
Massive. And I saw something that Adam actually put out. It was a Loom video. This had to be a couple weeks back. And I recently, watched the thing, and it was something about a tool that you guys put out about evaluating landing pages. And so, given the fact that so much marketing, or at least so much attention in the general contracting space or the home builder space, is direct response, right? They want to put $1 in and get, $30 out, or in their case, sometimes $150,000 out, right? Um, that being the case, it's not always about, you know, running an ad like a messenger ad or something like that, or running an ad to a lead gen form on Facebook, but it's about sending them to a landing page. And so talk to me about like what makes a solid landing page, say for a local service business.
Yeah, well, a lot of the things that make a good landing page for a local service business are really, you know, pretty evergreen, and they apply to kind of everything. But I would say, and you know, a landing page is like, for clarity too, landing pages are used. The difference between that and like a website page is that they're usually used for some sort of specific offer and focus, right? And that's why they're often used for paid ads, is because it's not a place that you want to just have all traffic visit and browse and be able to see everything you do. It's not really the point of a landing page. It's supposed to be, oftentimes they're quote unquote squeeze pages, and they're supposed to squeeze people to a specific action, right? And so with any page, I'd say the most important thing that a lot of companies don't get right, and this can happen to service businesses too, though it's a little bit easier than SaaS for them, is clarity. So clarity is always number one. I say don't sacrifice clarity for anything. Don't try to get cute or cheeky with taglines. Don't try to, like, you know, have some like cool wordsmithing pun or something in the headline. You see that all the time, right? Like, you see a lot of that. And if you're sacrificing that for clarity, it's definitely not worth it. And, you know, there's something that I got from the Story Brand, building a Story Brand book. People might be familiar with that. And they call Donald Miller, yeah. And they call it the grunt test, right? Because it has to be so simple that caveman can understand. So it's like within the first 5 seconds of landing on a page, you should be able to know, you know, what do you do? Why do I need it? How do I get it? Right. And so, like, you know, that headline and that hero section, the subheadline, and then the call to action, very clear. So at least, so that's a big part of it, right? So clarity, be clear. And anytime you're trying to balance between kind of being clever or being clear, always just go simple, stupid, clear, like 100%, because that's one of the biggest problems you see. And like, that's the first thing I land on a landing page is, what do you guys do? You know, is it super clear? So that's most important. The second, I would say, there's kind of 6 things. I would say second would be like value, and then proof, social proof, differentiation, and then your offer, call to action, right? That's kind of like the big buckets that I look at. So clarity, and then you have value, and really like, yeah, what's the value you're getting across, right? And this comes from messaging this well on a page is going to come from, you know, your customer research and your experience. If you're going to know their pain points, right? So I always like to start with pain points and look like, what are the biggest problems and how do you solve them, right? Very clear, simple value. The third thing would be proof, and that can be in the case of like contractors, service business, it can be like proof of work, right? And like showcasing. A lot of times there's a visual aspect to the work, which is great. Anytime you can just show up front, you know, what it looked like kind of before and after, super powerful, right? Like, images speak really a lot louder than words sometimes. But social proof, right? So testimonials, and authentic looking testimonials. Like, the difference between throwing up a testimonial from a customer that, like, hey, they did great work on this, and it's in a maybe a little just a text field in a little gray box or something. The difference between that and a video testimonial from a client, or an image of them with their face and their job title, and like, because people fake reviews all the time. I mean, it's just it's rampant, right? And so that's a big part of it. And you can't go I think you can't go too heavy on reviews and social proof. It's very, very powerful for any industry, service businesses especially. I think, you know, Yelp used to work at House. It's like, you know, these review sites, that's the first thing that people are looking for. What are others saying? So that's a third real big thing. Can't overemphasize that enough. And then differentiation. So especially in a crowded space, right, where if I'm looking for, some sort of service that a lot of people offer in my area, it's like, okay, well, how are you different? Like, what am I getting? So reviews are going to be one, but if you guys have equal reviews, what am I looking at next? Do you have a different process? Like, are you cheaper? Do you price match? Like, do you have a better like offer? What's your different positioning? Some sort of way to differentiate yourself. Like, really ask the question, like, why me, right? Like, why would you choose me over this guy or this company? So that's a big point as well.
Yeah, no, like I think that you brought up so many great examples, but the one word that I feel like is the elephant in the room, so to speak, is the O word, and that is
Mhm.
offer. And I think that a lot of general contractors, home builders, custom builders, whatever contractor you may be, or even just business owners, period, I think that they want to out copy or out design their offer.
Mhm.
They think that they can write some incredible, compelling copy, or post up some beautiful pictures of homes they recently remodeled, and that is going to be the factor that converts their strangers and turning them into
Mhm.
customers. And I think that the offer piece is such a massive one that makes your marketing efforts, right, when you do run campaigns and things like that, Mitch, I think that it either makes or breaks campaigns. So talk to me a little bit about, I guess, like, how have you seen offers change the trajectory of a campaign that you guys have run in the past?
Yeah, the almighty offer, as I like to say, right? Because it is almighty, and I think there's when people think of offers. I think there's kind of a lot of limiting kind of beliefs around that too. That offers are always like discounts or sales or a BOGO, a buy one get one, or something like that. That kind of competing on price or giving something away for free, which those are all great. Like you can use those, if you're like the service business, if you're a dentist, you can give away free teeth cleaning or whatever, right? Like, free quotes and stuff like that. Those can all work, but I think that people focus on those a lot. And an offer can be, there's risk reversals, but there's also in like things like price matching maybe, but there's also I like to think really like a lot of the most effective offers, it's really your promise, right? It's really like the promise that you're making. And for contractors, and I have like this is a personal like pain point that I've felt that I'm just like, man, this process could be so much better. Was an offer can be a process that you're offering, right? Like we do things this way. We do things. Here's exactly how we do it, and it's different than how others do it, and that can really be an offer. And you're like, oh man, like that's what I need. And like for example, like for contractors, one thing that was really really a pain point when I talked to maybe 10 different contractors when I was doing my renovation. I did like a full renovation and addition on my house and the whole works, and was just getting a quote, just getting a good quote and getting like a realistic timeline. Like it was so difficult, and I ended up with through a referral through a friend, I ended up finding a good contractor to work with, and when you think about, and he did give me a good breakdown of a quote, but I think about that like as an offer that's not a discount. It's not anything like that's super direct response or salesy, but it's really like, hey, like, we're going to give you a quote that's itemized estimate of everything, materials and labor, and then like a timeline, right? Like with a Gantt chart delivered. Like that would be like next level, I think, even for this industry. And like that was something that I remember wishing that I had. I was like, I wish they would just send like a clear offer, a clear breakdown, a Gantt chart, some sort of timeline estimate, and just some sort of clarity around that. So an offer can be something like that, right? Like it could be process, it could be some sort of promise that you're giving to them that doesn't have to be some sort of like discount or some sort of offer, right? So yeah, and that changes everything. I mean, that in other businesses, we're always looking at offers as well, just to get people in the door, right? To get them in the door, to get them to take action, right? And again, it goes down to goals. So for a landing page and a squeeze page, it's like really thinking about who your audience is, what's a compelling offer, and testing those. Frankly, like on the digital side, you have the luxury of putting together these like MVTs, minimum viable tests, and you can test different offers, and that's the way. And then sometimes you find an offer like this offer has like a fit, an audience, that kind of market fit, and you run with that. So being agile in that way is really powerful, and it's good to start there, right? It's like, what's our offer? What's our promise to the customer? And you can back out a campaign really from there, right? Everything kind of ladders up.
Yeah, that's massive. And I think that, look, I think that a lot of service business owners, especially general contractors, they kind of have an idea based on what everyone else is doing, right? They look at what other general contractors do, or they look at what industry competition does. I think this even happens because I came from the B2B SaaS space. It happens in B2B SaaS too, where we look at other offers that other people are running and we're like, you know what, if it's working for them and they're at this scale, we'll probably be successful at it too. Not taking into consideration that there are other pieces outside of just the offer or outside of the advertising or attention getting mechanism that make the company as successful as it actually is. And so one of those things I would say is kind of, we were talking about this off camera a little bit, right? But it's having a solid sales process once you get the attention in place, right? Once you get a lead, once you get that phone number, that email address, and that name of that person to reach out to, what does the cadence kind of look like after that? So I guess my question to you is, what are some of the best ways that contractors, once they do choose to run paid ads, and I want to be very clear that I don't think that a lot of contractors are set up to properly run paid ads to get the most out of it. But when they are in that space to get the most out of it, what are some of the best ways that a contractor can set themselves up for success when running their first ads?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I'll get to the second point on the sales process and the follow-up, but I think first is having a clear goal and definition of success, right? And, maybe it sounds obvious, but a lot of people running ads don't have that. They go, hey, let's put out advertising. We're getting traffic, right? Okay, great. So really defining a clear goal and having what does success look like and what do we want to achieve, right? Sounds simple, but it's not obvious. And the second is, like we were talking about, is focusing more, I would say, on what happens after the process, right? After the ad process. And this happens in every industry, and it's one of I'd say the more difficult problem to solve, because you can make, you can copy someone and come up with an offer and probably have some decent success with that if you're starting out. I'm going to copy their offer, and they're a big enough company, cool. But what you don't realize is they probably have this conversion mechanism on the back end that's actually a lot more difficult to build out that you haven't built. And so that's everything from, what's your lead follow-up process? First, how qualified are the leads you're bringing in with your offer? Is it some sort of lead magnet? Are you going to cold call someone that downloaded an ebook? That's not going to work, right? That's a very common mistake, service businesses and SaaS businesses. So the level of qualification of the lead, what's their intent when they came in? And then what's the appropriate follow-up based off that initial action? So maybe it's a call. Maybe it's a text if you get them into an SMS funnel or something. Maybe it's just an email. Maybe it's a follow-up, something like that. But really, I wouldn't spend a single dollar on ads until you knew exactly what you were going to do with those leads and those contacts once they came in. So really important. And then I guess the last thing I would say is, before starting ads and setting up for success would be, getting to know your customers. And a lot of companies are I know the pain points of my customers and all of that, but how many of them actually surveyed or talked to them, right? Some of it seems obvious, but talk to your customers and you'll be surprised. I've been in this business forever and I didn't realize X, Y, and Z was a big problem. And which is true, because even the example that I gave, I'm so many people are dropping the ball. So many contractors are dropping the ball on that, I think. And a simple process improvement like that would be great. And I know it's a pain point for a lot of people because I've talked to other people in my position. So I think talking to your customers, applying the learnings and research from your customers to your campaigns, focusing on your sales follow-up process, being super defined and clear on your goals and outcomes. That's definitely three things that will set you up for success running ads.
No doubt about that. Look, I was just talking to a general contractor actually a couple hours before you and I got on, and we were talking about, the act of surveying, the power that comes with surveying your customers. And one thing that he said that really stuck out to me, and if he's listening, he'll know exactly what we're talking about. But what stuck out to me is that he said that, oftentimes I don't survey my customers because I may not want to hear certain things that I know are true, right?
Yeah.
And it's so powerful because I think that a lot of times we may almost be willingly be giving way to some of those blind spots just because of the fact that there's a certain level of accountability that you need to take on as a business owner in order to survey things. Because now, once you hear that information, you can't unhear it. And if you don't take action on it, then what does that say about you, right? So it kind of becomes like this personal thing. And so moving on to like the personal side of it, Mitch, I mean, at the end of the day, First Spark Digital is not just like a business being run by a business. First Spark Digital is a business being run by people, right? It's by yourself, it's by Adam. And so there are obviously a lot of different types of customers, a lot of different campaigns and structures and all the nitty gritty that comes with it, sure. But I think more than anything, to run a successful business, period, there's a certain identity that somebody needs to have. And so talk to me a little bit about the identity that you possess today, that you have today, and kind of how it is that you created that identity for yourself over the last few years.
Yeah, that's a good kind of personal, kind of insightful question there. I'm a work in progress, just like everybody else, but you definitely, when you go out on your own, and you've experienced this too, and you're running your own business, whatever that business is, it changes you. If you're going to succeed, you have to take, responsibility, and kind of like radical responsibility for a lot of things. And that survey question is kind of a good example where it's like, I'm scared to kind of like hear what my customers are saying, but it's like one of those painful truths, it's like you got to kind of burn away those old beliefs in order to kind of transform and step into your kind of new self. And that's what's happening all the time as a business owner, right? As you're just like having these kind of like mini deaths and rebirths over and over again, right? And like you got to kill that belief and get that new belief, kill that belief and get that new belief, right? And it's and that's kind of like a big metaphor for life, right? That's happening in general. And so the personal transformation is a huge part of it. One of my big mentors that I've worked with is this guy, Brian Johnson, who runs a site called Heroic. And, he's multiple time entrepreneur, sold multiple businesses. But one of the first things, kind of advice that he gave to me was like around business advice was he's like, how are you eating? How are you? Like, what's your exercise routine? And then and he says he'll tell that to entrepreneurs, and they're like, yeah, it's fine, but like, let me ask you about this. And he's like, no. He's like, don't skip past that. He's like, it all starts there, like the fundamentals, the fundies, as he calls them. So it's really, the personal side is, I'm working from home right now. There's a lot of discipline. A lot of people are working from home now. A lot of just discipline and changes that come from that, running your own business. And I like to really think foundational, and like my personal habits and the personal growth side is like the most important part to my business as well. Because if I'm not doing well personally, and I'm not like able to grow and handle relationships, you're doing this podcast, you're talking to a lot of people. Relationships are a very big part of it. And and relationships are tough, right? Relationships are difficult because you're interacting with other people, different motives, you're trying to communicate, and there's a lot of pain involved. There's a lot of reconciliation that needs to happen with my business partner. I'm just as close with Adam, my business partner, than I am almost with my fiance. We're having a child together. I talk to him more than anybody. We know each other's bank accounts and social security and stuff. And so, yeah, the personal side, I'm very into personal development and personal growth. And I think it goes hand in hand with running a business, right? And I think it does. Ultimately, your business will be a reflection of your personal values and your personal development, whether you think it's important or not, whether you want it to or not. I think it's just the truth, because as a leader of a business, everything's going to ladder down. And you can have it, there's businesses that are very successful monetarily, but you of these businesses that have a really bad culture and they're really toxic. And so what kind of business do you want? And you have to define that. We're a business, we're growing, we have different aspirations, we're going through different stages. We're still small compared to a lot of bigger agencies out there. But it's like, I can't overemphasize enough that your personal kind of values and your growth, it's going to ladder down to your employees. The things that you celebrate and things that you kind of lift up within your company culture are the things that get done and get prioritized, so whatever you're valuing, it's going to ladder down to your team. So yeah, I think people discount that a lot in a business, the personal side, but I mean, I think it's a great question because I think it's super important.
The saying goes that there are no such thing as business problems, only personal problems that manifest in your business. And it's something that has resonated so much for me because I had a district manager actually when I was still working at T-Mobile, and in his signature, he would always put at the end of all of his emails, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And when I was younger, I would look at that and I'd be like, yeah, right.
Whatever.
I would look at that and I'd be like, yeah, that's not a thing. And then the older that I got, the more I realized that that is probably one of the truest things. Like how I start my day when nobody is around, when, I don't have anybody pinging me and it's just complete silence, is a massive indicator of how I'm going to show up in the relationships in my day-to-day life. Like, am I going to be a grouch, or am I going to complain? Am I going to be irritable? Am I going to be annoyed? And am I going to take that energy and am I going to bleed that on to other people? I think you made so many great points there, Mitch, because people at the end of the day work with other people, and it's not a matter of B2B or B2C. It is a matter of P2P, right? Person to person. And so I guess, like, with that being said, one of the biggest beliefs that you had to break about yourself, I'm very curious to hear, because you had this mentor, or you have this mentor that you work with. And I guess, like, what are some of the things that he has shown you about yourself most recently on a vulnerable level that, like, you felt like has kind of allowed you to take yourself to where it is that you want to be now?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think starting off, a big limiting belief is that you kind of got to do things like everybody else, right? Or you got to be a certain way. And this kind of goes back to the question of kind of copying. And, it's great to steal like an artist, so to speak. And especially when you're coming up, they talk, people have imposter syndrome and you kind of fake it till you make it. That's all like great and fine. And everyone's putting on their best face, right? Everyone's like doing their best. And it's fine to kind of look at what's happening in your industry and kind of imitate others a bit. That's always going to happen earlier in your career. But I think, it becomes a limiting belief if you don't grow out of it. And once you realize that, you get to a comfort level and you get a certain level of confidence, get reps, you need reps under your belt. You need to talk to people. You need to get some success. And then you start to realize, okay, like I can be myself, right? What's my competitive advantage as a person, as a human being? Right. And that's huge because, and I think of like Gary V, Vaynerchuk, which a lot of people probably know. I think of Gary V of that because he's like really successful, but he's like really, really unique in his approach, the way he talks and his cussing and his outlandish like behavior. And he's big on preaching that, but it's so true. And especially now when you have the reach with digital and you can get your personality out there, don't think that you need to be a certain way, even on camera and doing content or doing anything in your advertising. I've seen, so many people do things differently and unique, and then that's their competitive advantage, right? So there is the, whether it sounds like cheesy advice or not, but the like be yourself type of advice is huge, right? And it applies to your business, and that does ladder down. Because I love that quote of kind of like your personality, or your being an extension of your business, because it really is. And so once you can kind of drop that limiting belief of like, oh, I need to do things this way in my industry and this is what others are doing, and instead be like, what do I have to offer? What are maybe a couple different skills, or maybe it's my personality plus this, and you can combine kind of a couple skills, or maybe you have a specific unique kind of personality trait. And then you can really lead with that, and that can be a great differentiator. So yeah, that's something that, comes with experience. It really does. It's tough to do it early on. And I get it. Like, you're always going to kind of copy and imitate in the beginning. But I think the quicker you can realize, hey, I have something to offer that no one else in the world can offer, right? There is something. And if you believe that, and if you believe everyone has one thing that no one else can give to the world, and if you think that, you believe that and think that, and you find that, and then you cultivate and you nurture that, then it's like that's going to stand out in your business. It's going to lead you in directions that you would not have gone. And look, things move very fast in digital space in general. Things are speed is a force, right? And so anytime if you're people that are copying trends or copying others, it's like you see how fast a trend picks up and everyone's doing it. And so it's just not a sustainable path. And so it's like, hey, the way to build a moat, so to speak, of a business that's kind of indefensible to competitors is to just find uniquely what makes you you. And that is what will uniquely make your business your business. And then that's going to really resonate. So that's a great kind of personal / business kind of lesson that really.
Love it. That's a massive one that I know that not just contractors can take away, but really any business owner who just listened to that riff from Mitch right there can take a lot away. Finding your unique voice and showing up unapologetically with that voice is truly going to be, I feel like, one of the biggest differentiators between the ones who are just kind of getting by and the ones who are really thriving in this digital economy that we're in. I guess that being said, we're closer to the end of the show, the podcast, and this is something that I typically like to ask all the people who join us. But if there is one piece of advice that you could share with someone who is running their own general contracting business or just business owners in general,
man, there are so many, but I would say right now the most important and relevant is move fast and have a bias towards action. Because one of the biggest things that I see, especially as your digital space, is that there's a lot of overthinking, there's a lot of advice, and there's a lot of, I get pitched on different things as an agency owner every day, about 20 different cold emails on different products and different stuff. There's a lot of content to consume. And so I think I mentioned it earlier, find an MVP, a minimum viable test for whatever you're doing. And that's low risk that you can learn, right? There's so many low risk tests that you can take out there. And I just see it so often where people are just paralyzed by the amount of info and they're like, oh, I got to get this funnel set up and I got to do this and I got to do this. And it's like, no, act now. Things are moving fast. If there's very little risk to doing this test or taking this action or taking this out, do it. Have a bias towards action. So that's just one of the biggest ones for every business. I talked to my contractor that did my work about marketing, and he was interested in marketing, and he's like, I've been watching this and been learning from this, and I'm trying to think, do I start this? Do I start posting on Instagram? Do I share them on YouTube? It's like, okay, slow down and move fast, right? Slow down, focus on one thing, and then just act, right? Because he hasn't done anything on it yet. He hasn't acted. And so I just see it so much. And I hate to see people paralyzed by kind of too much information or lack of kind of confidence. And so bias towards action, take action, and just get it out there. Try to be immune to embarrassment. And try to there's vulnerability in doing marketing. It frankly is. Don't be afraid of the camera. Jump on and do some content. I mean, you're doing it now with a podcast and you're putting it out. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. I do it every time I do a LinkedIn post. It's like, put yourself out there, have a bias towards action, and no one's really paying attention to you anyway, right? Everyone's worried about their own stuff. And so I just see that holding so many businesses back from doing marketing is like, oh, well, we don't want to shoot this content. We don't want to take this action. We're worried for all these different reasons. And, so much inaction happens from that. So yeah, that's the one thing. Have a bias towards action. Don't be afraid to really just like put yourself out there and test.
That's freaking gold right there. I think that every contractor, guys, if you are listening to that right there, Mitch is dropping bombshells of gold. You need to perk up your ears to it, because in this day and age, if you are not taking that action, if you are not moving in a direction where it's speed to new idea, there's going to be a contractor out there. There's going to be another business owner out there that is just going to take up your market share, take that food off of your table, and build their market share as a result of how quickly they chose to take action. So, Mitch, that is absolutely massive. The very last question that I will ask you is going back to the mentorship point. What has mentorship done for you? And what would you suggest it to another general contractor?
Oh man, this is an area where I I've kind of lacked in for a long time. I never liked asking for advice. I was always wanted to figure things out myself, and I'm good. I'm an autodidact. I'm self-learned, but oh man, the massive unlock that you get from finding someone that has knowledge you don't. It's like I've paid the biggest thing that when I was starting was I didn't mind, even when I had no money, investing $1,000 into a course. I didn't even finish the course, but it was valuable. It made me act, and it gave me the impetus, and it gave me the knowledge I needed to take the next step. And that was it. And it was well worth the money. And so, yeah, I mean, the more that you can just seek out, it's going to accelerate things so quickly for you to reach out and find someone that has just knowledge you don't. And I personally, I'm like, I want to pay. If someone has knowledge I don't, I'm like, hey, I want to pay you for it so I can get it as fast as possible, because the ROI on that knowledge is so massive. And I think people discount that. And, I discounted it kind of for a long time, like early on, but it's huge. Find mentors, find people that know things that you don't. They're definitely out there. And the return on investment for that is immense. It's huge.
Yeah, massive. Definitely find somebody that knows what they're doing. Do your due diligence, but at the end of the day, there's always something that you can take away from a well-versed mentor. And I have worked with plenty of mentors in my time, invested too much money probably in courses and mentorships and things like that. But every single time that I do it, I never regret it. There's always something positive to take away. That being said, though, Mitch, I mean, you have been an incredible guest. Thank you for sharing all of your insights with us on the Unconventional Materials podcast. We're looking forward to seeing how people interact. So if you guys haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you guys would like to interact with Mitch as well, I will go ahead and leave his LinkedIn profile actually down below in the description. And if you want to check out First Spark Digital, and if you just want to get some general consultation to figure out kind of whether or not their agency is right for you, or if you have like a specific company that is right up their alley as well, I highly encourage you guys to go to their website. I will drop it in the link down below as well. With that being said, Mitch, thank you so much once again for joining me on today's episode.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.